We have an injury update regarding Josh Green. If he misses a little bit of the beginning of the season, does that open the door even more for non-committal to start? Zach Lowe, we're aggregating again. Oh my God, we're aggregating a lot. Zach Lowe had some things to say about Brandon Miller and his impact on the Hornets in the future. Sicko Satchel to finish up the last part of the show. All today, Locked On Hornets.
Please aggregate me.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day, maybe every 3 days now, silly season, but it is still your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast, and that does include YouTube. There's Doug Branson. He's on a Substack of his own, everyhornetsboxscore.com. He also has another podcast, Locked On NBA, on this very network. He hosts that alongside Matt Moore and Hayes. I'm Walker Mail. You can listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Okay, we have some more updates regarding this Hornets team. They pick up players. They make the content easy to come by, baby. We love the silly season because we get to have fun. Also, there are genuine things that affect this team to talk about. Real stuff here. We have an injury update. Of course, for the Hornets, we're all too used to that. Here's another one from Rod Boone of the Charlotte Observer. He writes this on Josh Green. Green is still recovering from shoulder surgery and was in a sling as recently as Las Vegas Summer League action earlier this month. While there's no definitive word on his recovery timetable, league sources told the Observer Green probably won't be ready to go by training camp. That, of course, just further complicates any possibility of moving him off the roster via trade before the season begins, and his value isn't great coming off of his initial season in Charlotte. Real quickly, go read the article. I don't want to do that to Rod, and I know he doesn't like it.
I'll put the link in the show notes. Don't worry.
Go read the article on the Charlotte Observer
he will
from
get
Rod
mad
Boone.
if you don't.
Well, and also I get it, right? This is how he puts money on the table. This is what he does, right? Puts money on the table, put bread on the table with your money. But this is what he does. So go read the article. You see that update by Rod Boone on Josh Green, trade value, just overall useful player, kind of in the rotation. What you think?
That's the first time I feel like Rod has said that his value wasn't great coming off the initial season in Charlotte. That's the part that stood out to me because, I mean, I've said that a lot on this show.
Yes.
Because, I thought they brought him in to be a secondary scoring option and a chaos maker on defense. I think he did an okay job at performing the latter and was really absent completely as the former. And
yeah.
They needed particularly once players started to get injured, and he wasn't one of those players. I felt like that was a perfect opportunity for him to show up and say, I'm not the guy that couldn't score any points overseas in international competition. I'm not the guy that sort of was shrunk in the moment during my time with the Dallas Mavericks. It was time for him to prove a point, and he did it. Well, he proved a point. It just wasn't the point that I think a lot of Hornets fans wanted him to prove. And so now he's going to miss this opportunity to do what essentially is defending his job, not even his starting job, but just his job on the Hornets, because they went out and they got Colin Sexton, they drafted non-committal, both players slot in right at his position. So it's now I think the one thing that's going to save him once he gets healthy is that Josh Green, unquestionably better, more experienced defender on the wing than non-committal or Colin Sexton. So that will help him hang around the rotation, at least in the short term, I think.
Yeah. I mean, as crazy as it is, right? I always come across as I'm defending Josh Green as this big Josh Green stan. It's only because the difference between us is so vast, not because I love him, but because you're still so far down on the Josh Green trade. And I do get it. You're right in Charles Lee played him a lot of minutes last year. Even when guys were healthy, he played Josh Green a lot. The reason he did that was because he felt like defensively they could lean on him a lot more, and because he does provide size. He provides some kind of physique out there on the wing. He can shoot threes. He can shoot corner three specifically, but he was not someone that you felt good about attacking the rim anymore. He had a pretty abysmal shooting percentage at the rim and beneath the 3-point line. So really, if he wasn't hitting threes, then he wasn't really helping you offensively. Like even the
he was
passing,
scoring 2 points.
Doug, that was his game. On the other hand, defensively, how many players do you have on your team right now like Green? That's the issue. And so I wonder that's the hardest thing for me to gauge going into next season is the difference in value on Josh Green when it comes to Charles Lee, when it comes to Jeff Peterson, when it comes to the fan base. I know what the fan base thinks of him. I don't quite know what Charles Lee thinks of his first year because he did play him a lot even still. A lot of minutes for Green. Con-Knippel's here. You're right. You have a few more wing players to roll with, but this is why we didn't love having to get rid of Okogie. It just made too much sense. It was too much salary to dump. You didn't want to pay him more than some of the other guys that you either traded for or re-signed in the Trey Mann stance. And so we liked Okogie. We wanted him here for defense. It just made too much sense to have that salary non-guaranteed and then just to get rid of it anyway. Green is still that kind of player. I'd be interested in how Charles Lee thinks of him.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, with the salary that it was making, you would want him to come in and make an impact year one. And even in that scenario, if you drafted Con-Knippel and moved Josh Green to the bench, you'd still want him to perform. I mean, that's just going to make him more tradable. Now, I think if he doesn't find his way back into the rotation, that he simply becomes an asset that you could use, the dollar figure, because I don't think that another team is going to find him attractive enough to make a move for him or to look at him as like, oh yeah, this is part of the deal is I'm getting Josh Green. It turns into a little bit of a negative contract in that sense. So, hopefully he can get back, get healthy and become a, productive bench defender where I would say my expectations of his scoring at that point, particularly with all of the other scoring that they've added to the roster, would be more in line with the scoring that he did in the previous season. It's just in that season he needed to score more and he couldn't.
And I mean, yeah, we knew he wasn't going to be a high usage player. That was the role. It's why I felt like he filled in a nice fit here. But the usage percentage went further down. Like he was in the 25th percentile with the Mavs. He was in the 7th, and right. LaMelo was out. Brandon Miller was out. Trey Mann was out, and we still were like, no. So I guess, okay, part of that's coaching. Also, part of it's like it's not like I wanted Josh Green to have the basketball in his hands a lot more. So it's not like I thought Charles Lee made an issue or had an issue here. He just never had the basketball in his hands. Doug, he was a corner three merchant. That was what he did. This is what he did offensively.
Yeah. You want these guys to be like Cody Martin. Cody Martin would be he was somebody that would stand in the corner, in that 1 year where he was nearly leading the league in 3-point percentage, he would stand in the corner and knock down threes. But then when a guy did go out, when he got more minutes, he was aggressive. He said, okay, I understand that I need to be more now, and I will be more. I also understand that you cannot consistently count on me to be more every night. And so once those other players that you can count on become healthy again, then I will go back to my role. That's the brilliance of really good role players. And you saw this all over with your TJ McConnells of the world, with your Neesmiths of the world, with everybody that OKC throws out there. It's role players who can go to their role, and then when you need them to step outside occasionally, they can raise the level of their game. That's what we didn't see from Josh.
That didn't happen. No, that's a good way to put it. If I can just give you a workhorse of a pitcher defensively that can hit corner threes, guess what? You have value in the NBA. I'm not saying that you don't have a spot here on a roster. You hit corner threes at the level you do, hell yeah, baby. I'll take that. You play as much defense as you do. Like, just I feel good about you on that end of the floor. Cool. Yeah. You're right. So many guys went down, and there was a little bit when they traded for Green, like a play on the upside. Hey, there might be some untapped stuff here. And I would argue that's exactly what he didn't give us, was stuff. Like, it was, I'll shoot, I'll defend, I ain't going to do much else for you. And that's what we saw. So we'll see how much Charles Lee values that. All right, coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
From an injury update, maybe dabble a little more into who we think starts at that spot. We know who is going to start, Brandon Miller. How important is it for him to become an all-star, not only maybe next season, but years after? Zach Lowe thinks it's very important. Zagregation coming up next, LOH.
I like that.
You sounded surprised. Oh, Zagregation. I like that. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier with Monarch Money?
Yes.
It can be easier. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Zagregation, it's happening again. Hey, thank you for talking about us. We appreciate it. You're kind of one of the guys to go to in the basketball podcasting sphere, and so we're going to discuss your opinions on the Hornets.
People do talk about the Hornets. He's the only one I think that talks about them intelligently, in the sense that it's not that I think he's always right about the Hornets, but I do. Right. I am always confident that he has watched the Hornets enough to have an opinion.
100%. And I was about to tweet it. I still might, but the running joke that I kind of have is it's been 0 days since the Hornets have caught a stray. There was a Jeff Teague story he was telling back the first couple of Coach Bud days in Atlanta. And somebody said, yeah, man, if Coach Bud didn't come in there, y'all would have turned into the Hornets. I was like, all right, great. Here's another. That's what we're used to hearing when we listen to basketball pods, not so much Zach Lowe. So Howard Beck joined the Zach Lowe show. He and Zach were going back and forth drafting what they feel are going to be the most interesting players in the NBA this upcoming season. Zach Lowe's pick, maybe about like 3, 4, 5 rounds in, a little bit into it. I think they picked 6 players a pop. So, somewhere in that range. Zach Lowe picked Brandon Miller. Brandon Miller is one of the most interesting players to watch going into this season, and had some strong thoughts on how important Brandon Miller is to the Hornets' future. Here's what he had to say.
This is going nowhere. I'm talking nowhere for the next 5 years. Nowhere interesting, nowhere close to interesting. Interesting, you can't even see with a telescope. This is going nowhere if Brandon Miller isn't an all-star. Nowhere. And so after a lost season last year, I'm excited to see this kid come in for year 3, off season, get healthy, work on your game. Maybe LaMelo's healthy for most of the season. I'm excited to see what he is, because I was super excited about him as a rookie, and this is a whole wad of nothing if he doesn't hit, and I think he can hit.
Okay, I thought the audio was important to play just because he emphasized it so much. Clearly, he thinks essentially the Hornets' future hangs on Brandon Miller hitting in like the 80th to 90th percentile, I guess, right? Maybe 80th, because there could be some All-NBA potential there too. Thoughts on Lowe's emphasis with the point that he brought up?
I think he's right. Like, when you draft somebody second overall, particularly in that draft, that was not a terribly weak draft. When you draft someone second overall, you have to have expectations for that player that do reach all NBA. And those, we talked about it when we were looking at the list of the top 100 players of all time in the NBA, and we were scrolling down the list, and the Hornets had Alonzo Mourning for a little bit of that, but people regard him as a member of the Heat more than they do the Hornets. And then that's it in terms of players that they drafted or acquired and had their prime in Charlotte. That was it. They have not even accidentally tripped and fallen into a top 100 player, and so many other franchises have, and that's what get you playoff series wins. That's what gets you Christmas Day games, all the other things that every single other franchise in the NBA, except the Charlotte Hornets, have enjoyed over the past 2+ decades. They have top 100 players all time. So that's, and I'm not trying to put that necessarily on Brandon Miller, but he has to hit. And I think what Lowe is saying there, and Lowe is a guy who's been higher on LaMelo Ball than most people, but I think his expectations are now just slowly coming back to reality, which is like LaMelo is a very special NBA player, but he's not the type of player that you can put an entire team on his back and say, go, go. That's why Brandon Miller's ascension is so important. And Con Knippel, we just don't know what Con is yet or what he isn't. And so you can't really make any judgments about the Hornets' future based on Con, even though he was a 4th overall selection.
Yeah, if you have two foundational pieces for your future, and those pieces are LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller, if one of those guys doesn't hit, then you are screwed. I was wrestling with just how the amount of fervor he brought with that take. Like, it's going no, he wanted to emphasize hardcore that it all hinges on Brandon. He is putting the organization on Brandon's back. If you are not an all-star, it all goes in the tank. Like, this is what it is. I was trying. Okay, is it that dire? This is the question to me. Is it that dire? Because clearly, if he doesn't hit, it's a real issue. All right, how do you get out of it? Yeah, how do you get out of it? So Miles, they structured that contract to be tradable. It's only on the books for 2 more years, but they structured it that way because I don't think even in that anonymous executive record Keith Smith article, the anonymous executive did not say Miles was a pillar of the organization. It was Brandon Miller and it was LaMelo. So, okay, we know about Miles. You don't have Mark anymore, who used to be a part of the quote-unquote core 4, but he's gone and you couldn't wait to trade him, so you did that. Con Knippel, I like him. Awesome. Summer League MVP. Hell yeah, baby. Thumbs up on all of it. You're right. We don't know what he's going to be. Tidjane Salaun, my God. If your future hinges on Tidjane becoming a star, I'd walk around butt-tied all over the place.
It would change a lot of conversations if he suddenly came into camp looking like a potential all-star. That would change a lot of things.
You could argue, okay, well, what if LaMelo just goes nuclear and is your 25 to 30 point per game scorer? Didn't we see that a good bit in the first half of this season? Hornets clearly depend on LaMelo so much offensively. He makes a world of difference. Their record is much better with LaMelo on the floor, and that record with LaMelo on the floor still isn't playoff worthy. It's still not, we're going to win a playoff series worthy. Yeah, I understand why Zach brings that type of take with that type of spice level, right? It does matter a lot. And I think it does put into perspective, even for us, where I don't know if we've spoken about it with that volume, but he clearly is one of the more interesting players to watch this year. And we were robbed of that last year. I think we did put that into context, Doug, but it matters. And I think his volume level is correct.
I think Zach Lowe has a really good pulse on what franchises are capable of doing from a spending level, from an ownership level, from an aggressiveness level, what they're capable of doing, what they're willing to do, what history shows that they will do. And so I think part of that goes into this conversation as well, because I think that Jeff Peterson has been vastly more aggressive than Mitch Kupchak in terms of finding opportunities out there to acquire assets, to build the team, and this offseason in particular, build the team while you're acquiring those assets to be more competitive. So I think he's been vastly more aggressive, but this franchise still has not taken a risk anywhere near the level of some of these other billionaire owners like your Ballmers or your Ishbias that come in and say, we're gonna take the big risk on a big contract on a huge player. And some of that is limited, I think, by Charlotte's reputation. So they're working on rebuilding that. But some of it is also limited by your willingness to risk all of that money and spend all of that money. And so I think that's part of this discussion too. If this were a franchise that had shown willingness to do that, then maybe you don't put it all on Brandon Miller. You don't put it all on LaMelo Ball being healthy and Brandon Miller hitting, because there are other options that you could pursue. But they kind of need that to hit so that it helps build up a reputation such that you could go and trade for another player and feel somewhat any kind of confidence that you could retain that player on a next contract.
Well, and of course we want Brandon Miller to become an all-star for the direct results of him, giving us nice basketball to watch.
And so I don't have to play the Kupchak sound again of him saying, "We don't have any all-stars on this team."
Yeah, I don't want to play that. No, please. Those were bad times. Brandon Miller is extension eligible at the end of this season. And if he makes it hard to figure out what you're going to give him, yeah, even from that standpoint, even from that specific standpoint on deciding how much Brandon Miller is going to be worth. Is it more so like it's going to be more than what Jabari Smith, I think, was asking for, which was pretty much lauded all over NBA podcast sphere, right? It was a fair deal for Jabari, fair for Houston. People still are buying in, but there's untapped potential possibly there, especially as a top 3 pick. Okay, Brandon's going to get more than that. But does Brandon play this year to a point where it's a no-brainer and you just hand him almost all the money? Or are you going to try to play hardball with Brandon because he gives you something to play with? He actually does shoot 37% from 3, isn't a crazy dead-eye guy. He does take a lot from distance, but, maybe the turnovers are still a little bit of an issue. The ball handling might be still a little bit of an issue. You're paying for what you're going to get in the future, but also, like, you want to have an escape hatch to a tiny degree. Wow. Even in that context, just deciding what you're going to do contractually a year from now, even there, it matters a ton. And if you decide to pay that guy without ever reaching an all-star game, all-star money, then yeah, that's another reason as to why it might be going nowhere if he doesn't become a top 30 player for a couple of these seasons.
Well, and that's what makes the timing of that scapholunate injury, the wrist injury, just more devastating to me because, we got an update in that same Rod Boone article. Or no, this was on the Brandon Miller. This was a different article. Langston, you have to remind me of his name.
Wirtz, which I embarrassingly called him Hughes about 5 different times during my ESPN 730 days. It's Langston Wirtz, not Langston Hughes.
Got it. Not the Harlem Renaissance.
No, yes. not one of the best writers of all time.
His dream not deferred. Okay, so Brandon Miller said this during that interview about his wrist injury. It's probably around 90 to 95% now. I started contact drills. I'll be ready the first day the season starts. So great news. He's going to be ready the first day the season starts. I don't know if that means training camp. I don't know what exactly that means. If he's just like not going to be fully ready until who knows? Who knows what that means? But I'll tell you what it means. It means that this summer he's just starting contact drills, so he's missed a lot of opportunity to kind of get in and figure some of that stuff out. He needs to improve his ball handling. He needs to improve his defense. There's so many things that he needs to improve that would really, I think, require you in some kind of way to be able to get out onto a floor and, scrimmage and do some things like that. Yeah, but obviously he can do tape study. There was a lot that he could do, and I'm sure he did it. But just, when I think about the timing of this injury and how it kept him off the floor, he's got a lot to overcome. There are other players that the Hornets have drafted in their history where I would go, I'm not really confident he can overcome it. I don't feel that way about Brandon Miller. I think he can overcome it, and we'll just have to see what the beginning of his season looks like.
Yeah, we were robbed of it. We were all robbed of it. That one sucked, having him out for as long as he was out. All right, coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
We go back to the Sicko Satchel and we rummage. We rummage for letters from the front line. More to come here, LOH. Before we get to letters from the front line, I want to get to an exchange from Brandon Miller and a reporter. Doug, you liked this back and forth between Brandon and was it Rod or it was Langston? Actually, okay,
no, it was
share
in
with
the same. Yeah, it was in the same article that I mentioned before.
All right, what you got for the people?
So this is the question from Langston. If I told you the Hornets haven't won 50 games in a season since 1997-98, before you were born, what's your reaction? Brandon Miller, no reaction. Next question. Is that, he didn't say next question. I'm saying next question.
Yeah.
Is that going to change? Brandon Miller, I guess we will see.
Yeah, let's do it.
Can you feel the excitement?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it, baby. All right.
Couple of things.
This is Brandon. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, a couple of things. I really hope that Con Knipple is good enough to be interviewed in the future because I need one single player on this team other than Grant Williams who is both really good and can give good interview. Because Brandon, I'm sorry, that was bad interview. To be told that the Hornets haven't won 50 games in a season since 97-98, and your answer to that is no reaction. And here's what I also understand. I understand these guys are PR coached not to set playoff expectations, not to get out in front of the coach, get out in front of the organization, not to talk about baseball innings or anything like that. So there's like that. You don't want them to do that. Although players will do that, you probably as an organization, you don't want them to do that. But then there's this whole gulf between that and no reaction. Like, you could say something, give the fans something, give the sickos something that they can chew on, some kind of hope that you understand the pain that has been wrought on this fan base and that you're here to fix it.
Langston Wirtz is a legendary high school sports writer for sure of The Observer, which makes him a legendary writer for The Observer. I will say, to defend Brandon a little bit, first question could be worded a little better. And like I have to do this all the time. Like, I got to word my questions. Sometimes I leave an interview asking not so good questions because I don't get good answers, and that's on me. That's not from the subject that I'm interviewing. That's on me. If you ask Brandon, hey, what's your reaction for the Hornets having failed so miserably for the last 30 years? I don't know. Like, if you wanted to say, do you feel some kind of pressure to win basketball games because this franchise hasn't been to a playoff series in forever? Like, I think it could have been worded better. And I've interviewed Brandon a handful of times, like I think 4, maybe 5. And it's not the easiest, but also it's not that. Like, if you engage with him, if you have fun, radio is very different than a back and forth between the reporter, but there's also the kind of privacy of just being there with a pen and paper instead of being on the microphone where you automatically know what you're saying goes out to the public. Brandon was still fun and engaging when asking him questions about the Hornets, about Alabama football, whatever. So anyways, just to defend Brandon a teeny tiny bit.
No, I totally disagree with you. This question was fine. It's perfectly understandable. They have not won 50 games since before you were born. What's your reaction to that?
I don't know. I wasn't born. I wasn't born. My reaction is sucking my thumb because I was 2.
No, my reaction is I'd like to change that. Hey, that's what the money's for. I'm gonna come in here and do everything possible to help turn that around. That's what I wake up thinking about that. I go to sleep thinking about that. You could have said that. And again, that's not setting crazy expectations of being like, yeah, I guarantee we're going to win 50 games in the next couple of seasons, or we're going to make the playoffs this season. It's nothing like that. It's just like, no, to say like no reaction to that is a little crazy to me. And also, I'll give you another response, Brandon. Next time you're asked this question, here's a free one. You should say, maybe they should have hired Mike D'Antoni a few years ago. They would have won 50 games. They should have traded for Rudy Gobert. They would have won 50 games. There are a couple of free answers for you next time Langston asks this question.
I actually don't take the advice of saying they should have hired Mike D'Antoni. That now we have drama. Doug is single-handedly responsible for causing drama in the locker room. Brandon Miller wants Mike D'Antoni as head coach. Oh, God, don't do that.
But the other question, too, is that going to change? And again, this is a little bit of a trap question, and I appreciate Langston for asking it. And you could answer that a million different ways and not say, I'm going to bring playoffs to the Charlotte Hornets and make that headline and get out in front of the organization. But he said, I guess we will see. And maybe he did that tongue in cheek with a little bit of a grin. It's tough to say because this is in print. It's not a video. It's not on radio. You can't hear the intonation in his voice, the inflection in his voice. So, but again, when you see that in the cold black and white of print, I guess we will see. It's like, yeah, well, maybe I guess I'll buy tickets. I don't know. I guess I'll renew my season tickets. I guess we'll see. Like, come on, give me some kind of confidence. That's what I'm saying. Con Knipple will give us confidence.
I will say, Khan's media tour wasn't the greatest, so I don't think your wish is going to be true.
Why? What was wrong with it?
Oh, he was good with Bill Simmons. Oh, the other interviews, the Khan interviews, they weren't great. But he's a rookie. Liam McNeely, that was fun. Sion James, Ryan Kalkbrenner, they were good interviews.
Liam, you don't want to put him in this interview set because Liam would have been the guy that go with, 50 games, got it. I'm on it.
Yeah. Headband logo turned frontwards. Let's go, baby. Okay, letters from the front line, Sicko Satchel questions. We have a few different things, fan listener engagement segment wise. What we got for the people here today, Doug?
Yeah, let's do one here, and then we'll do a bunch on the next show.
Okay.
This one, and Frank Kaminsky reviewed Happy Gilmore 2, and I watched Happy Gilmore 2. I have thoughts. Frank Kaminsky used to play for the Charlotte Hornets, so I'm going to use that as the angle, the reason why I talk about Happy Gilmore 2. So stay tuned for that on the next episode. But here's Davis of the 8th Bismack Brigade, who asks, we saw Tidjane and KJ really improve from April to July. How much better do you think they can get leading up to the next season? Also, just a comment on the Khan defense situation, where he lacks in athleticism. I thought he made up for it in taking great angles and understanding how to use his body. He's going to get blown by in that next level of wing in the NBA, but he's not hopeless out there. Did you see it the same way?
Yeah, saw it the exact same way. I think for Summer League, non-committal was not this glaring issue. Oh my God, it's going to go horribly, horribly wrong at the next level. I did not come away from Summer League feeling that way. First game, we saw him get blown by Isaiah Collier. Yeah, okay, I saw some Hornets fans. Shout out to my guy, Herman Photography. Go check out his business. But Herman said Isaiah Collier had a push off on that play. Khan wasn't in position. It was a bad defensive play after a turnover. Not a good sequence. Yeah, he's not going to be a lockdown guy. I thought there were some moments where he was just downright good at it. Like, he was taking the basketball away from people, getting his hands in passing lanes. I did not see him as a monster issue this whole on that end of the floor. To answer your other question, how much better do you think they can get leading up to the season? Tidjane Salaun and KJ Simpson? Great question. I don't know. I'm hoping that they can get a lot better, because now you're going to be running fives, with these team sets. I don't know if you're going to be running ones versus twos, mixing it up a little bit. You're probably going to get a lot of different lineup looks, but I'm hoping that they can get a lot better. I think preseason matters. I can't help but think, Doug, of the PJ Washington preseason when he looked like ready to play right now in that moment, and we weren't exactly sure how to feel about that PJ selection, and preseason mattered. And then he played like 30 minutes a game. That rookie season context matters too. But yeah, I'm hoping we see some good stuff preseason from KJ and Salaun. That's the next step in terms of what we can watch, because we won't be able to watch training camp.
Yeah, that's the thing. Between now and when they get into camp and preseason, it's all about doing that, all of the individual stuff, getting all of that stuff locked in so that you don't have to think about that while you're processing everything else that's happening out there on the floor. The only way to get better at that, processing everything that's happening out on the floor, which is way more important for Tidjane than it is for KJ, who I think has a handle on what's happening out there with everyone else. So really KJ, it's just like getting those reps in for shooting, becoming a more consistent three-point shooter, both off the dribble and off the catch. That's going to be important for him. But for Tidjane, I think daily improvement is the thing that they've been constantly talking about and drilling, particularly into these young guys, about going into every day.
They're obsessed with it. How can I improve?
They're obsessed with it. How can they get better? And they're going to have to do that with the individual stuff. And then the only way you get better with that other stuff is by getting those reps in camp in preseason. And, ultimately, whether it's G League time for Tidjane early on or whether he has a role with the big squad. I mean, it's just making the most of those moments.
And Khan defense question. What'd you think about Khan's defense?
Yeah, there's a lot of like fluff and BS in the Men's Health article on Luka Doncic that everyone's talking about. Luka right. 2.0. There's a lot of like weird stuff in there. But one of the things that I liked in that article was about his, I think they called it eccentric force. And it was just a lot of talk about how Luka Doncic, not somebody that even when he came into the league and was kind of skinny, was not seen as like elite athlete, and how he used low center of gravity, strength in his legs to create space for himself offensively and also hang in there defensively. Now, Luka, not a very good defender. Gets blown by a lot. Can lock it in occasionally. Very similar to LaMelo in that way. It's like there are like glimpses of where he like locks it in, and then, he's managing his energy to focus on the offensive end a lot. So, for Khan, I don't think that he needs to be some like elite athlete to survive in the NBA. He's just going to have to use every available tool. His basketball IQ, his lower body strength, I think is going to be super important for him to hang in there. I think I'm I'm not crazy worried about Khan's defense on the next level.
And in Summer League, I think I don't think it was an issue. All right. That'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free. We're available anywhere you get your pods. That includes YouTube. Check out Doug's Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. Also, listen to his other podcast with Matt Moore and Hayes. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow. We got one more show to go this week.